Carolyn. I was like, Anthony, how did Carolyn look bringing the ball up yesterday? You know, it was all right.
You know what he was thinking?
What?
Hot.
Oh, you're taking me out. Oh, man. That's hilarious.
All right. You ready? We've bullshitted for 20 minutes.
Oh, man. That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Oh,
but it was a good day yesterday.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah, I got the list. You did it?
All right, I do too. Okay. All right. Here we go then. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Season 2, Episode 10 of the Strongly Worded Podcast. I'm Sue O'Lear.
And I am Johnny Hampton.
And we are coming at you on a Sunday afternoon from the dining room studio. Just me and Johnny this time. We've had a wonderful season of a lot of amazing guests. But today it's back to just us.
Don't turn it off. Please. Keep listening.
Yeah. So today what we're going to do is recap our community season. We're going to tie up some loose ends, talk about, some of our favorite moments with each of our guests, and just kind of finish up our conversation about community.
Yeah.
So first off, it was super fun to have guests.
Yeah, I mean, when we started this, I never imagined we would be interviewing people not only here in the dining room studio, but across the country, right?
Right. Yeah, it was. At first, I was almost a little territorial about our space, figurative space. But I really loved having a third or sometimes a fourth, person in here with us. And humble brag. Maybe not so humble brag. I loved how kind of positively we were received by our guests. How many people said, oh, this is a great vibe. The couple, that we had actually here in the studio with us, but even those that we interviewed remotely kind of picked up what we were putting down.
Yeah, I mean, they were comfortable, smooth conversations. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of pressure. We don't... we don't view ourselves as investigative journalists.
Right. Yeah.
So they were just conversations with questions that normal people would ask you.
That's something that I thought about as I would prepare for different guests, is if I were driving along listening to this podcast, listening to this interview, what would I don't want people to be screaming a question like, ask, you know what I mean? I wanted to be sure to ask stuff that people would really be curious about and not miss one. Because I've listened to I listen to podcasts all the time, and there are times when I'm like, how could you miss that?
I mean, ultimately when you interview people, you will miss things because you get caught up in the vibe yourself. Mm-hmm. And, you're listening to people tell their stories, and sometimes you just want to let them tell the stories without interrupting. And
it isn't until I listen back when I'm editing that I sometimes hear things that I didn't hear the first time. And
you're like, if we would have just followed up there, we could have gotten a little bit more. But that's normal, right? Mm-hmm.
We'll just have to have them all back.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. But it was fun. So Johnny and I both, I think that anybody who's even listened to probably one episode knows that Johnny and I are both very community oriented. We're very community focused here where we live in Palm Coast. And even, places we lived before when my family lived in North Carolina, we owned a business that connected us to that community. And then coming from where we come from, a lot of who we are is because of where we're from.
Yes.
So it was a natural progression for this to be our first topic.
Yeah. I mean, when we came up with the idea, I think you came up with this idea for this season. It was we immediately had guests that we had in mind, which was good. Mm-hmm. And they each got to talk about what they do for the community they either live in or working, and it was enlightening.
It was enlightening to learn about their experience, but I also then kind of learned things about myself along the way. And we're going to talk about each guest as we go along, but especially talking to some of the people who are from where I'm from and hearing their take on either our experiences when we were kids or you know, I guess I never really thought that my sort of need to organize or direct really came from, I mean, Flint is a union town, and right. Of course, you know, it was the pre-interview with Sinnamon where she said that about herself, and I was like, duh, that makes so much sense.
You know, I noticed an overriding theme throughout each and every guest that we had, and it reminded me of myself. Each guest we had, you know, we would kind of ask them, you know, do you realize the impact you're having? Or do you realize at the time XYZ? And most, if not all, were like, nah, like, I'm just doing the work. And that's how I feel a lot. When people say, hey, do you realize? I'm like, no, not really. I'm just doing, and I thought that was just like, you know, something unique to me. But it seems like most people who are involved in helping their communities are just doing it for the right reasons. They're not thinking about themselves at all.
Right.
They're thinking about...
maybe even to their detriment sometimes.
Right. Yes. They're thinking about doing the work. They're thinking about helping kids or providing jobs or safety, all those things that we've talked about. They're not thinking about if they're going to get a community service award. They just find that something is needed and they're going to do it.
Yeah. So our first interview was about an author, a local author.
Yeah.
And Tim and his producing partner, Stephanie, sat down with us, Tim Baker, to talk about adapting his novel, Unfinished Business, into a television series. Okay, so let's take one step back and just tell the audience. The name of the book is Unfinished Business.
That's correct.
Tell me a little bit about the story.
The story revolves around a woman named Meg, and she's a mortician. And through an unexplained phenomenon, Meg is suddenly compelled to act out the final thought of the people she embalms. Anytime a body comes into her funeral parlor, as soon as she touches the body, whatever that person was, whatever was on their mind when they died, she has to see that thought through. At first, it's relatively harmless, you know, the usual things you would think of, telling somebody you love them, telling somebody that what they meant to the, you know, but as it has to happen in a book or a movie, whatever, things take a turn for the worse when she embalms the body of a convicted murderer who had revenge on his mind, which puts her in some trouble.
Yeah, great book.
It really was a good book.
Yeah, it was a great book.
Perfect for an adaptation to the small screen.
Yeah, and I don't know how he didn't see it. And that's what I mean. Like, so, you know, obviously this is not like community organizing, but he's shooting this thing here in town, which is going to have a tremendous economic impact on our city if they allow it to happen. And I remember asking him, like, didn't you realize, like, when you were writing this thing, like, man, this...
it's like an episode and an episode and an episode.
This thing has a chance to be... And he was like, nah, I'm just
writing
my book.
Yep.
Yeah, and so, you know, talking to them about, you know, what it took to get there, all the necessary steps they took in adapting this thing, and the pushback they've received as well, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me still to this day. You know, in my mind, our county should be opening all the doors for them.
Yeah. When I originally thought of them and brought up the idea of inviting them onto the show, I was thinking of it in the context of the pandemic, because I, from the outside looking in, I thought, oh, well, the pandemic is a great time for people who maybe aren't having to go to the office every day now or whatever, have a different kind of free time on their hands, they could make some of these projects or dreams happen when they couldn't, when we were all busy, 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 busy. But in fact, I guess I was mistaken, because the process had started pre-pandemic and kind of was on pause for a while during the pandemic. But it is something that we explored in the conversation about how these kinds of projects, they're more accessible to people now through technology, through streaming, through, I mean, even his books are independently published.
Yeah. And easy to find, too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think we did talk about that, how it's just easier now for creators to get their content out there. Mm-hmm. And
there are many more paths.
Right. Like, you don't have to go to this major publishing house to get your book published. Mm-hmm. And you don't, you know, whether that's publishing, that's music, but in this case, publishing. So he was able to self-publish, mm-hmm. and then someone saw it, and now he's making a TV show. Mm-hmm. And he's making his TV show from scratch.
I know. It's also a pretty cool lesson in networking and not burning bridges and who you know and being a good human, because it seems like Stephanie Mazzeo that he was working with, first off, she was just a delight. Like, she was really fun to talk to, but she also has probably always been like that and could call this person or that person and say, hey, look, I have this book, I have this idea, I have this friend. You know, it's people coming together and really helping each other out and lifting each other up. The whole story about how it's coming together was so uplifting to me. It gave me a little faith.
Yeah, I mean, that can happen when you treat people well, right? Like, mm-hmm. So obviously she has. And she talked about a little bit, you know, I did makeup for this person, I did this for this person. Mm-hmm. And because of that, people understand that when you come to them with something and you have faith in it, they can trust you.
Right.
You know, and so she built that trust. And because of that, you know, she built that trust with Tim. Mm-hmm. And she was able to connect his project to people
who could help make it happen.
Right.
And I love, first off, when I read it, and again, the title is Unfinished Business. You can find it on Amazon or, you know, wherever you buy your books. It was fun to read a local author and see our community in it.
Yes. FPC is in it.
Yes, the high school, the property that I work, the cafe, the Waterside Cafe at Grand Haven.
Yeah. Finn's is in it, right?
Mm-hmm. And of course, in all of his books is the Golden Lion.
Right. So,
which is a great restaurant down at the beach for folks who aren't from around here.
Which again makes me not understand.
Yeah, I mean, they're super supportive of him.
Why Flagler County government would just not be rolling out the red carpet for this guy.
Right. But we are. I mean, they've said that they'll come back. I would love to have them back at some point to talk about how it's happening. Yeah, they're ramping up.
Yeah.
So, yes, the book is Unfinished Business, and you can find information about it on Facebook. Following the process on their social has been a lot of fun. They're on Instagram and Facebook. His company is Blind Dog Productions, BLINDOGG. We talked about that too. When you choose an alternate spelling for your business, you're always spelling it out for people, or they can't find it. Mm-hmm. But Unfinished Business is the name of the book and the show, and they were a super fun first guest to have in the studio.
They were great.
Yeah.
They were really good.
Yeah. So our second guest was also, and I have said this 100 times throughout the season, when we started talking about community, he was one of the first people.
Yeah, he was he might have been the first.
He might have been the first.
Yeah, he might have been the first.
Mm-hmm. DeWayne Jenkins.
DeWayne Jenkins. Or the mayor of Benell, as I call him.
Yep, hopefully soon, someday, before too long, run for some type of public office.
Yeah, I just coached against him yesterday.
Yeah. So if you haven't listened to that episode, Reading in White People Voices, which is one of the favorite titles of anyone we've had so far, DeWayne is reluctantly named. He wasn't sure he loved the title community organizer, but it's exactly what he is in a town, Benell, which is here in Flagler County, just right next door to where Johnny and I are sitting right now. And Johnny and I spend a lot of time in Benell. That's where our basketball league lives. Mm-hmm. And he shared with us a very honest and inspiring story of, being from there, trying to get out of there, being pulled back there, making some mistakes there, ultimately, I guess, finding redemption there.
Yeah, I mean, his story is an interesting one, right? Like, high school athlete, joins the military, gets out of, when you're from a small town or even the inner city, everyone's dream is to get out, right? Mm-hmm. Quote unquote, get out. And he did that. And then he came back, and he had a child, and felt like he had to do some things to provide, and ended up doing some prison time. Mm-hmm. And I the most striking story from that, knowing him the way I do, and I know him well. My assumption had always been, first of all, I didn't realize I had just met him right after he got out, mm-hmm. and so that was striking because when he got out, his mindset was all ready to help the kids. And to find out that mindset was born from a conversation he had with his daughter is what surprised me.
And for the longest time, my mentality was, when I get out, I'm just going to do the same thing I did. I'm just going to be smarter.
Really?
Yeah.
And
that surprises me.
Because that was my next question. Like, while you were in, did you actually think to yourself, yo, when I get out, I'm just going to be I'm going to be a better person, and I'm going to, keep my nose clean? You didn't think that.
No,
you was like, how can I not get caught the next time?
Exactly. And then what made it worse was I had a lot of people that would come to me, and the people that I thought were going to be the ones that set me up, they didn't. It was someone that I least expected. So I was like, okay, so if all these people didn't set me up, I can get out and I get all these people back, and then my life will just go back to normal. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? And I could just be that guy again. And I remember this one specific visit. My oldest daughter came to see me. She was 14 at the time, and I don't know if you guys follow her on Facebook, but she's always on social media. She's loud, she's goofy, she's funny, she's bubbly. You know what I mean? She's a clown. She's very photogenic. She posts a lot on social media, and she's always been that way. So one day we took a picture at visitation, and we're like standing back to back with our arms folded, like father and daughter. And then we went to sit down, and I go, hey, are you gonna put that picture on Facebook? And she just started making up all these excuses as to why she couldn't. Oh, well, I don't have the app. I have to re-download the app. I'm like, I haven't been gone that long. It takes 2 seconds. I know how long it takes to download the app. Right? She's like, yeah, but then I have to remember my password and all this stuff. So I just blew it off for about 5 minutes. And then I started thinking about, like, you're lying. You're lying. You're always on social media. I was like, why don't you want to post a picture? Are you embarrassed? And she just dropped her head. Like she didn't want to tell me she's embarrassed, but it was kind of like, yeah, I just don't want to go through that, right? So I was like, Jay, are you really embarrassed? And she wouldn't answer me. So I felt really, really bad. I felt really, really bad at that point, like really bad. So I told myself at the end of the visitation, I was like, I can't do this, man. Like, because that's impacting more than just me. You know what I mean? It's impacting my 14-year-old daughter. Like, she sees this. She understands what's going on. This is not a game. As much as she comes and gives me a big hug at visitation and, hi, Dad, I love you, she's still embarrassed. And I don't want that. I never wanted that. That's not the life I want. That's not the type of father I wanted to be. I don't want to raise my kids from prison. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I went back to my dorm, and I remember, and I prayed to God. I said, listen, I was like, please put me in a situation when I get out to where I don't have to do this.
To take that moment and turn it into what he's turned it into, and he's done all this stuff on his own, peace walks and marches and community giveaways for Easter and Santa for Christmas, and
showing up to the gym.
Yep, coaching all the kids in Bunnell who want to play for the Carver Tigers, which is the community team, and just putting in the time and effort that he does. He works at a restaurant. Sometimes he'll come directly to the gym to coach a game right from his shift, smelling like seafood.
We all want to go get that famous fish sandwich.
Why
is it I'm always hungry when DeWayne is here?
And like he's that dedicated. You know, he doesn't even go home to shower.
Right.
Sometimes he goes and coaches a game and goes back to work.
Goes back to work.
And you know, he's just an inspiring story to me. He shows what can be if you just put your mind to it. That anybody can impact the community if they want to. You just have to put the time and energy into doing it.
And look, a mistake, it's hard to have a mistake in your past, especially as a young black man, and not have it beget more and more mistakes.
Right.
I love his story because we know kids that, you know, face serious things or make bad choices or whatever. And I love that we have a living, breathing, awesome human embodiment of you can come back from that.
Right. And you know that you don't one bad mistake doesn't have to ruin your life. You don't have to keep going down that path. It's difficult, and he explained that. It's been difficult. But if you just stick to it, you can come out the other side. Yeah. And his story is important, and him being in the community is important because he can tell that story. You can look him up. I've been through these things, and now I'm going through these things, and I've done this. And you can too. Like, you can get out of here and go to the Army. You can go to the Navy. You can go. You know, I was talking to somebody just yesterday, and I heard that this person wanted to go to the Navy. And I was like, you going to the Navy? I'm going to miss you, because it's actually one of my favorite people at the gym. And that person said to me, Coach, I can't be on the block forever. And me going away, you know, I'll be able to help my family. Like, can't argue with that.
That's right.
Can't argue with that. And those people will be examples, you know? And you bring that back to the community and you show these young people, hey, listen, you don't got to go to college. You don't got to do all these things. You can join the military. You can do different things. You can just work at a trade job. He was at a call center. There's so many other ways you can get out of the circumstances that you're living in. And like, he's a shining example of that. Yeah. So I'm happy he got to tell his story. He was excited about it as well. So he was a good guest. Yeah,
that was it's one of my favorite episodes we did.
Yeah.
This season. I say that a lot.
They all can be your favorite.
I know, but they are. They are. Our third interview this season was with someone who's somewhat of a local celebrity amongst the teenage set. When we moved to Palm Coast in 2017, my son was just beginning his freshman year in college, his freshman year in high school. One of the things that I assured him would happen to kind of make him feel less anxious about the move was that, you know, you'll get there, you'll make the basketball team, you'll have friends, your life will be different, but it will feel familiar to you. Just hold on. And then he didn't make the team. But he very quickly made a trio of friends, and one of them was this guest. David Reese, or as the kids call him, DeReese, is a YouTuber, TikToker. And back when he and Joseph first became friends freshman year, they were kind of funny interviews and interesting pranks, and it's evolved, but his YouTube channel it blew up. He had a couple things that went viral, and before he knew it, he had a following, and he had a following that stayed with him, that allowed him the ability to monetize his channel, and gave him pretty serious financial reward. I mean, he was making some good money. And I was super curious and interested to talk to this local celebrity. So his YouTube channel is DeReese, DAREIS. If you ever wanted to check him out, I recommend his early stuff. But he and Joseph, became friends, kind of going around and doing these funny interviews. And in the beginning, David was sort of the butt of his own joke. And I found that funny. I think it's funny to laugh at yourself, right? So it was a good interview. It was an interesting interview.
Yeah, you know me. I guess I'm kind of old school. Sue had to hold me back from a couple of questions in that one. I like the kid. What I noticed most about that is how different he was as opposed to what I've seen on the videos. Mm-hmm. Right? Like how measured he was, how thoughtful he was. Mm-hmm. He's very confident in himself.
What do you think you're going to think about the content of your videos 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Do you think they're going to hold up? What do you think?
By 10 years, it'll definitely change. I'll probably have a family by then. I probably will have a family, so it'd probably be a family channel. Mm-hmm. More of a PG channel. Because my channel's not PG right now. My channel is...
No, sir, it is not.
You can't... No, it is not. It's PG.
Yeah. My channel is very not PG. Wow. But it probably will get to that point. It's like growing with your audience. My audience is probably 14, 15 years old right now. Mm-hmm. So, 10 years, I'll be 28. They'll probably be 25. Mm-hmm. So... they'll grow with me, It's going to be more of a family channel. That's what I think. Yeah.
It's good to be thinking about that evolution because that's how you stay relevant. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over without...
Yeah, for sure.
He's a kid who knows he's not going to college. Mm-hmm. He wants to make this a full-time career. As I said, he's putting a bet on himself, and you can't not like that.
Right.
You have to say, hey man, someone who believes in himself that much, more power to him.
This was definitely an interview that I had a lot of thoughts about during the editing process. That had it been a two-parter, I would have come back with some more questions about. And there were a couple things. And some of it, I'm sure, as thoughtful as he is, he's still a 16-year-old kid, right? Mm-hmm. So I think when he was talking about his channel and his style of what he posts, kind of growing and evolving with him as he grows and evolves, and he one day wants to be married and have a family,
mm-hmm.
and he kind of sees his style of postings change. Like, remember when who's that comic? Oh, he's so good and so irreverent, and he passed away. But anyway, he was definitely an adult's comic, and then he ended up on Thomas the Tank Engine.
What?
Right? Or a lot of them. I mean, Eddie Murphy's making kid movies now and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of what I thought of. I thought that was pretty cool. And it's I would have wanted to talk a little more about his followers staying with him that long, because he's not finishing high school. He dropped out of high school. He's not going to college. He's not going to be doing a lot of the things that a lot of, the people who are watching him right now. So, how do they stay connected?
That's a great question. I mean, we may have missed one on that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I also, as thoughtful as he is, he does not think about the impact his videos make. Mm-hmm. Because I asked him that. And I don't know if he had a great answer for it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think he's thought about that.
No.
If let's say, I don't know what the percentage is of 18-year-olds who end up going to college, but let's say it's 60. If he's not at college and he's not on a campus doing these jokes, mm-hmm. are those 60% going to be like, I don't got time for this?
Right. Well, he also didn't have a huge vocabulary for what it is he does or why he wanted it. Maybe it's common among influencers or the kids coming up like this today, but it started to sound like why he wanted to do this was the fame or the popularity, not he kind of fumbled with the question, is this an art form? Do you consider what you do an art form? I studied theater. I look at comedy as an art form.
It's definitely an art form. He doesn't realize it.
He doesn't realize it.
No.
And I don't think that everybody has to go to school and get a traditional education in order to be successful. But, you know, his inspirations or the people who influence him were not great comics, or were not, you know, they were other influencers. And I just hesitate when I mean, we've seen a lot of, in our 40 plus years, we've seen a lot of trends come and go.
40 plus? What do you do? No, I'm just
But we've seen a lot of trends come and go. Like what you're doing right now, the way you're doing it right now is going to evolve and change.
Right.
You know, I mean, we live in an age, like we're old enough to have not had a cell phone, to have not had the internet, to have not had Facebook. Like, you know, to go from where maybe you had one TV in the living room to one in every room.
Yeah, so for me, like when I remember during that interview, I said, well, you may not want to go to college, but don't you want to do X, Y, and Z to know? Like, I don't know. College is not for everyone, and I get that. But knowledge is for everyone.
Exactly. So how are you, like, what are you doing to learn to make yourself better?
Exactly.
How are you going to stay relevant if...
And I'm not sure he knows yet.
Yeah.
And maybe he doesn't have to at 17 years old.
Right. I mean,
You know
he's
what I mean?
17.
Right. So maybe he doesn't have to. But I'm glad I don't know if he took anything from the interview. I don't think he never posted about it like he said he would.
I know we didn't just want you for your following, Doris.
He didn't post it like he said he would. But no, it was a good conversation.
Yeah, really, I really thought that his followers would like to hear it. I mean, truthfully, I feel like things like this are one way that people stay with you through transition, is they get to know you.
He'll probably do a much more famous podcast.
I know. That's exactly what's going to happen. And I'm going to be like, dude, you've slept in my house.
And then he's going to post that one.
I know.
They already have 8 million followers. He's like, hey, you want 2 more million?
That's hilarious. But I did, like, in all seriousness, I really did. I had hope that that maybe, you know, some of his followers would listen to him talk as David and not Doris.
Nah, he wasn't.
And he was, you know, it's the first time he'd ever done it. He'll learn and he'll give somebody else the attention.
Great interview. I'm never mentioning it.
Well, he showed me. But it is a good interview, and I hope that if you haven't listened to it, you'll go back and check out Doris, Dareis,
Oh, man.
on Instagram and TikTok. So that's funny.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry, am I keeping you up?
No, it's, you know.
We were up late last night.
Yeah, I was wired.
Yeah, I was too. And we came home and turned the TV on for a little while and talked. And then, just like that, it left me. And I was like, oh, I have to go to sleep now. Joe was like, wait a minute. Well, I thought we were going to watch Saturday Night Live. I thought, nope, sorry. I'm out. So we had an interview with a local celebrity of a different kind. We had Karen Barchowski come talk to us, and Karen owns a local landmark down at the beach, Sally's Ice Cream Shop.
Best ice cream in Flagler County.
Yes, the best ice cream. Now, it's not communist ice cream, like if you read any of the conflicts on Facebook surrounding her ice cream, but Karen was another. It's hard for me sometimes not to call her Sally when I'm talking about her, but Karen was another one that I wanted to reach out to when we first started talking about this season, because I became aware. I mean, I've known Sally's, I've known her ice cream shop, but I became aware of her and part of her, kind of her situation at the beginning of the lockdown, or I guess a little bit into the lockdown, when we started watching the coverage about George Floyd. And local people like DeWayne and Karen were organizing. We're community organizing. We're organizing marches and demonstrations. And she, at her business, sort of became the center of conflict and controversy because she was living her values through her business. She, was definitely has a place that she makes everybody aware is inclusive of everyone. And she even said that, like, I'm not against anybody. I'm here for everybody.
Right.
And so the fact that she would sort of lend her business's name to some of these acts of social justice, right, caused some conflict because her shop is sort of kitty corner from where the Trump flags were flying in the big trucks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, as far as what brought us into the major spotlight of this, and first off, politics it wasn't about politics. There's a huge difference between politics and social justice and human rights and what is right. I don't believe there's no political party that owns this.
Out of all the interviews we had, I felt the most, I don't want to say the most honored, but it was a privilege to interview her because it is very clear she doesn't talk about this stuff a lot. She tries to stay out of the spotlight. She lets what she plans and what she says speak for itself. And for her to come and sit down with us and open up like she did, it was a real privilege. Because you could tell it wasn't easy for her at first, especially.
Right.
Because we live in a town that is mostly red when it comes to politics. They don't understand social justice. And that's just a fact. Okay? Some people don't understand it. And when you're out there with your business and you got stickers on your wall for LGBTQ and all this kind of stuff and Black Lives Matter, they don't get that. And for her to agree to come here and sit with us and even take the picture, all of this stuff that she trusted us with, it was a real privilege and an honor to speak to her. And just from a personal standpoint, having a daughter that's part of the LGBTQ community, having a son that you got to talk to him about police, the stuff that she does at that shop makes me feel seen. And it's somewhere I was already going to. I've been taking Tiara and Anthony there for many years. So to sit and talk with a person who really cares, and not just about the people in the community, about the people she employs, the minimum wage that she pays, the fact that she says, well, we can pay this minimum wage if it's not all about profits. She was amazing. Talking about how she raised her kids, how she runs her business, and how she faced all of that turmoil. Very strong woman.
Yeah, it was like you said, I felt like it was a privilege that she stepped so far outside of her comfort zone to sit down with us. And she's one, even at the end, and when we turned everything off and we're just kind of shooting the breeze, she said she was one of the first to really remark on the vibe that we set, and she felt so at ease talking with us. She was sort of upfront with me in the beginning about how when I initially reached out, she was skeptical because of you don't know. So we're, she had her daughter kind of check us out and look at our website and listen to an episode or, whatever. And I appreciated that she did that.
Yeah. And
I felt, I was happy that she.
Yeah, I believe her daughter runs the Sally's Ice Cream account, Instagram. And I remember that, when the interview dropped, she posted it. And I sent her a message. I said, it was great to talk to your mom. Like, it was great.
Yep.
You know, like, so, you know, I hope she keeps that place forever.
I do. I really, it's true. I mean, in that area, I don't know what I thought moving to a beach town would be like, but I didn't really think that it would be so red. And I don't know why, because I feel like you look at the ocean every day, you breathe that salt air every day, you should, I don't know, it should put you in some kind of mindset that's much more loving. And
here's the thing. So I didn't think about that either, but I think it's, so I say, you know, I'm gonna correct myself, because I said, like, it's a, you know, a red town, they don't understand social justice. I don't know if not understanding social justice is a strictly political party thing. So I apologize for that. I just think in our little town, there is a lot of racism. I mean, we had DeWayne talk about that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of sexism. Okay? Mm-hmm. And people don't understand LGBTQ issues. Mm-hmm. That's where we're at. So that may not be a red issue, but it's a Flagler County issue. Mm-hmm. And
it's something that she said too, very eloquently, was that these aren't political issues; they're moral issues.
Right. And I made that mistake just now. Mm-hmm. We morally, you should want everyone to be equal.
Right.
And like, I could care less if you're a man and you sleep with a man. You need to I'm going to hire you if you're qualified for the job. Mm-hmm. Like,
right.
These are the things we're talking about. Like, if you're a black man and you put your hands up, you shouldn't get shot. I mean, this seems logical enough.
I mean, I was saying earlier on another topic, but it's not, things don't have to be this complicated. And it's just very often, like, I posted something on Facebook yesterday, I shared something that basically breaks down how explaining things to children, we make it more difficult. We make it issues about what we know about them at our age, and not about the child at that age. Like, talking about what I always say it wrong.
LGBTQ.
I always get it's not a reflection on how I care about that community. I just get tongue-tied. But, and the little girl was asking what the letters meant. And one adult was like, you don't need to be worried about that. But the mother just said it. Well, the L is lesbian, and that is when two women have love for one another. And gay is when two men love one another. And, just sort of broke it down. And, like, it's the adults that screw it up and make it about.
Yeah. One of the things I've always tried to do with my kids, and, maybe one day we'll have them on and they can say whether or not that's true. Like, I've always tried to be real with them and talk to them. Once they get past a certain age, just talk to them like I talk to normal people. Mm-hmm. And be
normal.
You know what I mean? Like,
because kids are not normal.
No, when they're babies, you do the baby talk and stuff like that. I did that. But when you get to a certain age and you're ready to tell them something, you just gotta be straight out. Like, I remember, having to tell Tiara a couple of times family members have passed away, or some things happen, and you couldn't be like, they've gone up to the great whatever in the sky. Nah, listen, this person is gone, and that's what it is, and we got to deal with it. Like, when my dad passed away, I had to go tell my son, and I had to tell him. I couldn't. You can't baby around these things. So right. I understand what you're saying. Like, hey, if someone wants to know what a lesbian is, you got to tell them. Two women.
Seriously, it's two women who are in love. Like,
that's it. That's all you need to tell them.
That's all you need to tell them, because that's all it is.
That's it.
That's all it is.
So yes, salute to her.
Salute to Karen.
She's great.
I have not yet received my pint of Nutter Butter banana pudding ice cream,
which even means she's a better business person.
I wanted to go down there and get some of that honey lavender.
I haven't been. I like to go in the summertime. Mm-hmm. So I will be there here in the next couple months.
Yeah, we're gearing up for another
Brownie Sunday.
There. Yeah. So if you live in the area, or if you're ever visiting Flagler Beach, Sally's Ice Cream is right on the beach, right on A1A, and Best ice cream, and you can't miss it. It's hot pink.
Yeah, can't miss
Like
it.
hot pink and yellow. And
Great prices, great ice cream.
great ice cream, great people.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Karen, for being with us. We had a guest. Maybe you should introduce. He was a friend of yours.
Oh, this is Charles Yarborough?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have my friend Charles Yarborough on. He is a high school teacher and track and football coach in Queens, New York. And it's so funny. When I don't know if he's even listened to the episode.
What?
He says he doesn't like to hear his own voice.
It hurts my heart.
He said he would listen to it eventually.
I really liked him.
You know, I had another friend that I wanted to come on, but he never got back to me. But I had already asked Charles, and he said he would do it. So that weekend, you know, we set it up, and he got to come on and talk about his various experiences. And he said one thing he said really, really stuck with me.
I wonder if it's going to be the same thing that he said that stuck with me. You first.
So we were talking about discipline. And he said, you know, a lot of times people want to over-discipline, and if you can just get past the moment.
Yeah.
I think in parenting, coaching, teaching, and I've developed this mantra over the last maybe 3 or 4 years. We just have to get past the moment. Mm-hmm. In the moment, as adults, we are so frustrated. We cannot understand what these kids are thinking. We want to do X, Y, and Z to them 3, 4 times. But once we get past that moment and get past the adrenaline that the infraction or the whatever happened brings forth, we're usually pretty sensible and pretty understanding. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's getting past that moment. And then if I get past the moment, I'm good.
Like I had a kid the other night at practice who just walked out. And I was pissed in the moment, but I got past the moment, and I texted him like, yo, what's going on? And then he came back. So I just got past the moment of him not being there.
We can call that pulling a Charles.
Yeah, exactly. I got past the moment.
And one of the things I carried with me that I still think about quite a lot, and this won't surprise you, is when he talked about giving chances.
Yes.
There's no finite number of chances to give.
No. And we often think that. And, you know, he was saying, you know, I don't do any arbitrary chances thing like that, because if I do that, I box myself in. Mm-hmm. So if I say, if you don't do this, you can't do this, and, you know, every situation is different, he doesn't box himself in. And, you know, like I've known him for over 20 years now. And, you know, he is as good a person as they come. Mm-hmm. And again, as with DeWayne, as with Karen, as with a lot of the people we talked about, I asked him, do you ever think about how it is you being back in that community, the impact you're having? Because he's a black man, and we talked about the amount of black teachers that I had growing up. I think it might have been 2. And he said he had none. Mm-hmm. Do you think about that impact you have? You know, you teaching these kids, and he was like, oh, not really.
Because you just do the work.
You just do the work. And, you know, when you're on that level, you know, I always say teaching is one of the most honorable professions you can have. Shaping the young minds. The impact you have is so direct. Mm-hmm. It's much better than counting other people's money, I say.
Or cleaning their swimming pool, which is basically what I do. Keep their swimming pool clean.
Yeah, so, you know, it was good to have him on and to talk about those things in his journey. And, you know, he was good.
He was really good. He needs to listen to the episode.
Yeah, I don't know if he has yet. I gotta check. Because it was like about a week afterwards, and I said, hey, you know, because another mutual friend of ours had listened to it, because he used to ref some of Charles's games, and he had listened to it, and he thought it was awesome. He thought Charles was great, and he was like, oh, that's great. I'll listen to it at some point.
Do it for me, Charles.
I'm gonna message him today.
Yes. But that was good, and I think both of those points will continue to stay with me.
Yeah. I never really thought about it that way. The get past the moment thing is
I mean, if everybody understood that, what a different world this would be.
it would be because I think we tend to look at these kids and we think they have to be perfect.
And this is a conversation Joe and I have about various things. Sometimes we just judge against an unrealistic standard.
Right, because we weren't perfect.
Yeah. I mean, Joe gets frustrated with the dogs, and I say, but sometimes, like, they're dogs. Sometimes I feel like you judge them like they're kids that are being disobedient. They're dogs.
I'm not going to go against my friend on those dogs.
I didn't see anything.
He's right. I saw nothing.
I saw nothing. But I mean, we all do it. We all. It's we have to kind of. I always used to say, working in fitness, that I try to just meet people where they are.
Yeah, a lot of times I think we forget not where we come from, but who we were. And so you see, now you're this person like me. I'll be 45 in July, and now, I have a level of maturity, and I make certain decisions that I wouldn't have made at 25.
100%. And I have a comfort level with myself that I didn't possess.
Right. And so now you're looking at these kids and you're like, well, why aren't they X, Y, and Z? And so sometimes you just gotta,
remember. You gotta remember. So that was a great interview. I'm glad he was also our first remote interview.
Oh, that's right.
That was the first time. And if anybody out there is ever thinking about starting a podcast, Squadcast is the platform we use to record our remote guests.
Yeah.
And they're not sponsoring the show, though if they wanted to, I would talk to them. But I was interviewed for a podcast, and that's what they used, and it was so easy and seamless and effortless that
that's right. He logged on right from his basement.
Yep. And boom, there we were. So for what that's worth. But yes, that was a great episode. I hope he'll listen to it.
Maybe he has.
Our next guest that we had is somebody that I've known since elementary school. She's somebody that I've kept in touch with over the years because of Facebook. Like, she's somebody that I knew growing up that I probably, without the invention of social media, probably we would have just dropped off each other's radar, right? But because we had Facebook and now Instagram, we were able to reconnect and stay connected and check up on each other. We connected once a few years ago when I was still blogging, and she was doing a lot of writing, and we talked about writing quite a bit. And then we reconnected for the episode a couple weeks ago. Sinnamon Love is an adult, right? She works in the adult entertainment industry. She throughout her life has been married and divorced. She's a parent, she's a grandparent, actively helping to raise her grandson, who is awesome. And I'm lucky that I get to see snapshots of this adorable boy. And she is an activist, and she is an advocate and a community organizer in her own right. She is the one who said to me, of course we do this in our lives. Look at where we're from. We're from Flint.
Yeah, the funniest thing about that is when I told my wife we were interviewing her and who she was. She's like, "Oh, you're gonna watch a bunch of her." And I told my wife, I was like, "Nah, I'm not gonna watch any of them." She was like, "Why?" Like, because that's not what the interview's about.
Right.
It's not really about that. Like, that's a part of her life, but I'm more interested in what she experienced before that and during that, and what led her to do what she does now. And so to hear her talk about, not getting equal pay, and, these women not always being safe, those things were interesting to me. You know what I mean? Because you don't really think about that. Like, we're all adults, and I'm sure most people who here are listening have seen these adult films. And you don't think about that. You don't think about, well, is this woman being safe, or are they forcing her to do something she might not want to do, or how much is she getting paid for this? Like, you don't think about none of that stuff. And to talk to someone who was so eloquent and so articulate and talking about those kinds of things. And you also don't think about who these women are. So you guys were auditioning for the school?
Yeah, one day a week
sorta.
you would get one day a week you would get bussed from your school. And this was all of the schools in the entire city. So it was like every elementary school participated in this program where they'd take the smartest kids from each class and you would go to the school one day a week just for, to see, and you would get graded.
But it was like a day full of electives.
So you weren't doing math?
Well, we were doing math, but it was sort of disguised as rocketry like a kind of like I liken it to the STEM program that they have at Wadsworth, similar but different.
I went to public school 24 in Queens. We had to go 5 days a week. Like, what do we do?
It was they were trying to develop engineers at that age. So everything that we did was really geared. It was a gifted magnet program, but everything we did was really geared towards seeing if they could create engineers from the ground up. So, if we were studying, I don't know, Isaac Asimov. This is my middle school. If you were doing Isaac Asimov in science class, in English class, you were building model rockets in your science class, and studying, astronomy. And our grade school was the same way. We really did. We had a TV show. We had a TV station. We had a TV station in the 5th grade. Yeah. That was
or do you remember doing Mini Society? The big...
Yes.
coup de grace of the year was doing a mini society where we created a currency and businesses and business plans.
In the classroom, and we'd have to go around and you'd spend money and you'd figure out where if your business was based in this part of the school, the classroom, then you might make more money because of the location. It was like a city planning class.
It really was.
So now I know Sue.
And binary, we learned binary also.
What in the world?
Yeah. We were using Print Shop, all the things.
What about Print Shop? Oh my gosh.
How many people do you guys still keep in touch with from that school?
Not really. Not really.
A handful, but really only
on
with
Facebook.
So many things because of Facebook, because of social media. I don't.
So just know, reading a little bit about Sinnamon and now knowing you, I think that school worked. No, and the reason I say that is because you guys, you both think outside of the box when it comes to certain things, and you have an entrepreneurial spirit. Both of you do. So that experiment, I think, worked.
Yeah,
now, you didn't become an engineer, but
right. But we learned to engineer our lives.
Yes.
And in ways that we might not have otherwise.
It wasn't some destitute story.
And it's not to say that those destitute stories don't exist.
They do exist.
But because of people like Sinnamon trying to educate and help empower the women coming up behind her, because of the women who came before her,
they will exist less.
Right. I appreciate that about her. She said a couple things. One point that she made was about now we have 2 generations that think porn is free.
That's true.
So on the one hand, where sort of the ease of accessibility and technology and everything at our fingertips also, made something that was a very lucrative industry take a hit because, of these tube sites and things like that.
And she also talked about just who owns these studios and how deep the racism goes back.
Right.
The good old boys, as she called them.
Good old boy. At the same time, they have the money to help fight certain fights
that
need to be fought.
And that was the question I asked, are we trying to get them out of here? And she was like, well,
they serve a purpose.
We need these studios because these studios are the ones who file lawsuits on our behalf to keep, to make sure we're not censored or to make sure we're not. So it's not as black and white.
And that part of the conversation stayed with me. I applied it to other things. I apply it to even our league a little bit. Some of the philosophical differences I have with how the league is run, but ultimately, I'm not leaving it. Like, this league needs to exist, even in the way it is, so that other things can happen.
Right.
It was a good take. So, a few days after, or maybe a week after posting that interview with Sinnamon, what happened? The shooting in Atlanta happened. Right? 8 victims of a murderer who went on a shooting spree, killing Asian women at massage parlors.
Right.
And I probably would have thought about that story exactly the way the news read it to me had I not had this conversation with Sinnamon. Because the news still somewhat sanitized what happened.
Like, do we not think, for anyone who doesn't think that this guy went to shoot Asian people, it's nuts. Like, he fetishized these women. Like,
but that's it. They're sex workers.
Right.
They kept calling it a spa, the spas, which they are. But like, you're not going to a spa to get your eyebrows waxed and get a massage. I mean,
he wasn't,
right?
Yeah.
And in so many ways, people don't take seriously violence against sex workers because, I mean, Sinnamon kind of spelled it out in a Facebook post that, again, I might not have read in the same way had I not talked to her, where very often people think they can get away with it because there's no protections. They're not going to be missed. You know what I mean? Like, they're somehow less than because of the work that they're performing.
You know what kills me about that? This guy, and this is a total side note, I'm sorry. This guy is saying he killed them because they presented temptation for him.
Right.
Like, what are we talking about here?
Right.
And then the police, well, he had a very bad day. Not as bad as the Asian women he killed.
Right.
Like,
but that's just it. So again, because of this conversation with Sinnamon, I kind of looked at this from a different. So he has mental health issues, obviously. B, sex addiction is real. It's real. He's a white male, so he is fully comfortable just naturally turning his problem onto, his addiction, his problem is the fault of the women providing the service. And so on 3 different networks, I watched this coverage, and on 3 different networks, I never heard the term sex worker. It was, it was just very sanitized. And Sinnamon is doing some work with some organizations that are really trying to educate people that this goes deep, and part of the reason why these women are so vulnerable is because their work is still criminalized.
Yeah, and I think that is a part of it as well. But I also think if this was a black man who did it, it wouldn't be as sanitized.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
of course.
And if it was,
I guess that's just what I'm saying. Like, it's just such a more layered issue than
super layered.
Yeah.
And
than a white dude having a bad day.
Yeah, we could have a whole podcast on that alone. Like, I'm seeing all these posts about that particular thing, and I have a lot of friends who are Asian. I grew up in Flushing, Queens. I spent 13 years there, and it was predominantly Asian. And I had Asian friends, even had an Asian girlfriend back in the day. Okay? And I see some of my black friends posting about, well, when black people are killed, we don't get, and I'm like, I don't know if that's the hill you stand on now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, like, for me, Martin Luther King Jr., an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere, right? And so you want people to stand with you, you got to stand with them too. So I just feel bad for the increased violence, whether it's sex workers or Asian people, because, I blame Trump, but that's a whole different podcast.
I mean, there's not much I can't blame on Trump.
It's a whole different podcast.
But yeah, it is. But I appreciated her willingness to come on the show.
Yeah.
I reached out to her and she said yes immediately. No research or selling her on it needed, and I appreciated that because I could have talked to her for hours.
Yeah, she really opened my eyes to some things. In terms of the racism and the safety and stuff like that. So for me, like, that was an interview where I don't know if I asked maybe 2 or 3 questions maybe, because she was so engaging, and her story was, it was a good, it was such a good story, and I wish her all the luck in what she does, and she's just a good person.
Yep.
Like, when you listen to that back, she just seems like a good person, warm and loving and caring and all those things, but also, very laser focused on what she needs to do for the people that she's fighting for.
Right. Yep. And I definitely understand, and am seeing in a new way how I feel and what I believe about
Decriminalizing?
Thank you. That her work, that line of work, that type of work.
Decriminalizing LGBT.
I know. I'm sorry, you guys. I try.
Yeah, I mean,
but I definitely understand that in a new way.
Are we one of the only countries that criminalize that? Like in Europe, like you can be a sex worker, like you can be a prostitute, no problem, right?
I mean, I'm sure it's not without problems, but I mean, I don't know that it's criminalized anywhere the way it is here.
No,
I would have, I think another conversation I would have had with her, it definitely wasn't part of this one, but I would have wanted to talk to her about trafficking.
Oh, yeah, she's probably seen that. America criminalizes anything that poor people can use to get out of being
100%.
You know what I'm
that
saying?
is it right there.
You know what I mean? So that is what that's about.
Yeah.
Like, so you protecting a woman from what? It's her body.
Right.
She can do what she wants. If she wants to sell it,
I mean, that's
on
the abortion
her.
debate right there.
Yeah, that's on her.
Yep.
So
all of it.
Yeah, a quick way to get out, they criminalize it because they want you staying where you at.
Yep. They want us poor and dumb and overworked so we can't organize and march. The words of my son. When we had a lot of, early on in the pandemic last year, you and I were having a lot of conversations, but so were Joseph and I. And that was one of them, about how the man wants us all overworked and poor and sick.
That's a fact. I mean,
yep. Boom. All right. That's it.
Yeah, I mean.
Thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen. So I had one more friend that I called up to join us on the podcast, and I've said it 6 times now already, but when we started talking about community, I said, I wonder if Dayne would ever come on the show.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know. We had not spoken really. I don't think since I left Flint in 2008.
Really? I didn't know that.
I mean, we swapped some likes or whatever on Facebook or whatever, but he was in big stuff, and I went off and was on doing big stuff, and his social media profile was very much his political profile, So yeah, no, we hadn't really. It had been that long. I mean, I haven't been back to Flint since we left, but one time.
Yeah.
2 times. But anyway, but he definitely was the type of friend that when we did talk, we just picked up kind of right where he left off. But Dayne Walling is the former mayor of Flint, Michigan, and he was the mayor at the mayor at the beginning, at the genesis of the water crisis.
Yeah, I looked forward to that interview because I was interested to see what he had to say.
He's someone, as a human, he is somebody that even when we were kids, he was such a good human being. He was such a good person. And I didn't talk about this on the podcast or whatever, but we dated for a minute. And I was not equipped we know young couples who have dated, and they were not equipped. They were too young and not really equipped to handle the magnitude. Like, I was, at the time that we were close in high school, I was not comfortable in my skin. I was not, I was kind of holding a lot under the surface right there. And I could not get comfortable in that brief relationship with him.
Yeah.
Because he even at 17, 16 years old, he
knew
exactly who he was. And so, and I just had no doubt that if I could get him to say yes to come on the show, he would be who he was. So I sent him this rambling email. It's like, hi, I know we haven't talked in 10 years.
Yeah, see, I didn't realize that. I thought you guys had kept up with each other.
Just looking at each other's stuff on Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so it was this kind of rambling email, and I'm doing this now, and this is our theme, and I'm sure, there are probably restrictions on what you can talk about or what you want to talk about or whatever. And I'm not looking to be salacious, but we're doing some really cool stuff before this, and I think you're doing some really cool stuff after this, and I would like you to talk about as much of that as you can or you're comfortable with. And I hit send, and then the next day I read in the news about more charges in the case being filed in Michigan, and I thought, oh shit, I hope he doesn't think like I'm after. So I wrote another rambling email. I'm like, oh, I just saw this stuff in the news, and I don't want you to think like I never mind. Like, forget I said anything. And a few days later, he messaged me back, just kind of like we were 16 years old. And he was like, Sue, no, of course I will be on your, it was the same thing. It was a yes right away.
There were so many difficult moments as mayor in Flint, and most of those did not get national media attention. So that was different about the water crisis. But there was a kind of core strength that I believed I had developed during my time in office. It's like when you're training every day how to interact with people who have very different views than you do, very different life experiences. You can't sleep. You're wondering about the budget. You're wondering about what's coming next to the community. So I saw it more as wanting to stay and be part of the fight for justice in Flint. Some people might not have wanted to hear that, but I have invested so much of my life in this community, and I knew a lot of what the state was still trying to do, even when Dr. Weaver was in office and I was a private citizen. The kinds of things they were trying to do and trying to pull were just reminiscent of what I had experienced, and lifted my voice on Facebook. And I didn't necessarily have the local media wanting to interview me on these issues because they could go to Dr. Weaver and hear from the mayor herself. But I've done what I could to try to be a part of those conversations, to lift up my voice and to say, this is what Flint needs, this is what would make a difference, and just stay in that fight. I think we have to recognize that democracy is not just like driving through and ordering your favorite coffee or what kind of toppings you want on your cheeseburger. It's tough, and there's winners and there's losers, but we can't all just walk away. We have to stay in the mix.
And
yeah, I was struck at how he took responsibility for his part. Okay, now, like I said, I don't know if I said it to him. No, maybe I said it to you afterwards. I got a lot of friends, you see the Flint, they always put the young black people on the news when, obviously Flint has white people too getting sick from the water. But a couple of my friends were like, oh, did you take him to task? And I was just like, I think you should listen because he took himself to task. Like, you can't take someone to task who says, I should have triple checked. Like, you can't take someone to task who said, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. What are you supposed to say to that?
Right.
Now, obviously, a bad thing happened. But I often say, when you're a doctor and you're at work and a bad thing happens, somebody dies. When you're an accountant, you do a reversing journal entry.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a mayor of a town and a bad thing happens, sometimes people die. Mm-hmm. That doesn't minimize it. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, oh, well, people died. Oh, well. Like, I'm not saying
But
that.
he said sometimes good people make mistakes.
Right. And that's life, right? Mm-hmm. And so for him to talk about, hey, I've learned I got to check with people who don't work for the government.
Now, was that a huge statement or was that a huge statement?
I mean, I got a friend, and I hope he's listened to it. He's a big non-government person. He's anti-vaccine. He's anti-everything, right? And I said, he said something about, like he was asking about the interview. I said, he said something about independent medical experts that I know you're going to love. Mm-hmm. Because, like, hey, at the same time, I like Dr. Fauci, but I also want to listen to the people who don't work for the government who can tell me about the coronavirus. Right. And he feels like he should have done that. And when you listen to him, like, I don't know the guy, okay? My first time meeting him. So you guys go back, but I don't. And I feel like I can tell when somebody's BSing me and when somebody's sincere. The sincerity that he had, it's hard to fake that.
One of the articles that I posted leading up to that, the last paragraph said he's not ruthless enough for politics.
He's not.
He's not ruthless.
And you know that because he did not spend any time covering his ass. And because of that, he got named in some lawsuits, but obviously he was later dropped from them because they realized that he was duped as well. Mm-hmm. Now, you can take him to task for being duped. You can say maybe he shouldn't have been duped. I get that. And I've seen, Sue showed me some posts not too long ago where somebody was saying, oh, he let people die. I don't think that's the right narrative. I think people died on his watch. To say he let them die is wrong.
Said he poisoned our city.
Yeah, that's not what happened. And you should educate yourself on what happened. That's all. Find out what happened. Do it for him. For a guy who still lives there in Flint, who his wife is there, his kids are there, he still works there. He's not hiding from nobody.
He said in our conversation leading up to the interview that he doesn't like to turn these interviews down as long as they're legit, because as long as there's somebody who still wants to talk about it, he feels like he has to be willing to do that.
Yeah. So I would advise everybody who knows about the Flint water crisis to do their research on it.
Yeah.
Because I think he was in some ways collateral damage in terms of, well, I don't know, maybe not. And his political life was damaged, but I don't think his personal life is as damaged. Because I think people took the time to find out some stuff. Because the very fact that he still lives there means it cannot be that bad for him there.
Right.
Okay.
He said something interesting because I was trying to get in a little bit to his head about what it felt like to have loved this community so hard and have these people that he's known his whole life, born and raised there. People, even like the friend of ours that left that comment that, we're all there together. So angry at him. And he said, you know what? He said, there were challenges to being the mayor of Flint. This one was just in the news. Like there were a lot of situations that were really hard that people don't know about because they didn't make national news. So he had already experienced some of that, you know.
He had a great perspective. He's like, yo, that's politics, man. Like basically, hey, I was the mayor, so I'm going to hear some of that regardless. But
And he said, I consider the water crisis a trauma that was inflicted on the community. And trauma is something that I'm particularly interested in right now, learning about and examining for my own personal reasons. And I had talked about a story that I'd heard where somebody else had a trauma and felt like the first response to that trauma was not to feel it, to not feel any feelings for a little while. And I wanted to talk about that even more with Dayne, because he got right to work. Like, he took what happened and turned it right into, like he said, getting the water filters to the women who had to make formula with tap water. He turned around and put everything right into the work. And he still experienced this as a human being too, as like a person.
Yeah, I don't know if he has allowed himself. And I think I asked him that. Like, do you even allow yourself to feel any kind of pity when all these people are getting sick? And I don't think he did. So, yeah, I don't think he ever did.
It'll be interesting when he writes that book.
Yeah, and what I also found interesting is that had he not had the right filter, his kids would have got sick.
It's another question that I wanted to say. They would have. We lived on the same street. The house that Joe and I had Joseph and Carolyn in was a few houses down from where Dayne lives with his family.
He was drinking the water.
He was drinking the water. And what I didn't ask, and I feel like maybe some people who had a preconceived idea of what they thought, going into it, probably would have wanted me to ask, and were saying in their cars, was, what were you brushing your teeth with? What were you taking showers in? Like,
the water!
Yes.
He was brushing his teeth with that water. He wasn't getting bottled water. He wasn't getting water.
I guess he was after he found out.
He wasn't getting water from the fridge.
But I wanted him to say that. I think that probably some of our listeners needed to hear him say, okay, like I was cool with.
I hope our listeners are smart enough to know that if he's happy he had the filter in the fridge, he's using the water. Like, he was cooking with that water. Like, so he's just lucky his kids didn't get sick.
Yep.
That's it. Not everybody got sick from the water.
Right.
He's lucky. Yeah. He was drinking that water. He drank a glass of it right there. So what are we talking about?
And when this, when this story was breaking, truly, it's not. I'm not even making this up. I was standing in line at the bank. And CNN was playing on the TVs behind the tellers. And I was looking, I noticed the word Flint on the ticker. And that was Dayne drinking the water.
Right. So you got to ask yourself this, right? If he knows the water is bad, would he be down there drinking the water?
Right. Right, exactly.
Did you see the governor down there drinking the water?
No.
That's what the fuck you didn't see.
Yeah. Yeah, but I thought that was just a great conversation too, and a great way to end the season. He was genuine and thoughtful, and really open to any question.
I appreciated it. I thought it was great, and I respect him a whole hell of a lot for doing that. Now, he knows maybe 80, 90 people will hear this, but you never know what's going to get picked up anywhere when you're a politician. And for him to just accept his role in it, now I know I should double and triple check. Now I know I should talk to X, Y, and Z people and not just this person. Like, so that's enough for me, but I don't live in Flint.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a kid that got sick from the water.
Right.
And so I do understand if people want to still be mad.
Yeah.
But, facts are facts. And I hope everybody in that community and who's from there and whose kids even got sick take the time to find out what really happened. And if you want to hold him accountable, you can, because he holds himself accountable. But he may not be responsible. And there's a difference.
There's a difference. And on a personal level, I was happy to see that I was right about him in high school. It's true. He still is who he was then, and he's not ruthless. And people can go through things, and it can really change them. And certainly, getting into politics could change you. But it was a nice ending to the conversation to be able to say you are who you were.
He's good. Yeah, he was a good guy.
He was a good guy.
And I think he'll be back on.
Yes.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I think he'll be back on.
Yep, for sure. So that was our season on Community, and it was a really I think, an excellent examination of the word and the thought and the idea of, where we come from affecting where we're going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we had some great guests, and
nobody told us no when we asked them to come on. I didn't
well,
have anybody
asked
tell us
someone
no.
to come on, they never came. So,
But he didn't tell us no.
that's like a no, though.
But I just appreciate that.
No,
These
I think,
conversations were met with a lot of openness.
so I think that speaks to, not to toot our own horns or nothing, but it speaks to who we are as people, right?
Well, I'm the nice one. That's we determined. Victor said it last night, so it's true.
I don't know if anyone would confuse me with the nice one, so. But I think people understand that we're not trying to embarrass them. Mm-hmm. That we're going to be truthful and talking to them about why we're trying to talk to them.
And even just being new in the game and new at this, we're still gonna. It's gonna be not wasted time. We're gonna get to something good.
Yeah. So
each one, we really got to something good.
I feel like we did, for sure. I think each of them had a nugget in there that was great.
Mm-hmm. When there was a period of time where I watched a lot of talk shows, and I would sit there and think to myself, it's fun to hear an interview with J-Lo. But I'm curious about real people. If I had a talk show, I would have regular people on it, because regular people have extraordinary stories.
And
here we are.
That's what Oprah and Phil used to do back in the day. They didn't have stars.
But
all
there's
the time.
nothing. There wasn't anything like that.
Not anymore.
Not right now.
Nah.
Yeah.
That's because they're all doing podcasts.
They're all doing podcasts. Would be for us. So, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you listening to our Best of Season 2 episode. I hope that if you missed one along the way, you'll go back and give it a listen, and share with us what you like. I would love to know what your favorites are. If you listen to our podcasts in a place that you're able to leave a rating or a review, 5 stars would be awesome. But rating and reviewing when you listen helps us get seen by other people, and increases our visibility in a good way. If you are not already part of our Facebook group, the Strongly Worded Pod group, you should be. I would love to have more people involved in there. I'd like to try to post things leading up to episodes or post things after episodes to get people a little more strongly worded in our conversations.
Yeah, we need everyone in that group to listen.
Yes, and truthfully, we would really love it too if everybody in the group would share a favorite episode on their social.
Oh, maybe we'll post that.
Yeah. But even so, even if it's just the 80 of us, that's awesome too, because we really enjoy doing this and we really enjoy having you all along on the ride. Follow us also on Instagram at the Strongly Worded Pod. I'm dipping a toe into Clubhouse.
Oh, are you? We've been on it for a while.
I know, but I listened to a podcast where one of the hosts is getting into it, and so I've spent a little time playing around with it.
So are we going to go on the podcast and talk about some stuff?
Yeah, we may.
Clubhouse?
We may. We may.
I'm down. I'm down for that.
I haven't actually talked yet, but I've listened to a lot of the conversations. So, so yeah, find us on our social. Come join our group, and stay tuned. We will be introducing season 3 very soon. It's going to be another good one. I think.
Oh, it's going to be great.
I think it's really going to be great.
I was talking to a prospective guest today.
That's fantastic. I love it. All right, thank you for listening, everybody. Strongly worded.
Yeah, before I left the house, I said that.
This Strongly Worded podcast is written and produced by Johnny Hampton and Sue O'Lear. Music production and vocals by Marshall Max LaMont Hamilton, and cover art by Samantha Shakes.